Well, hello once again. We're inside the tackle box with Dakota Angler, and once again I'm joined by Jack Linneman. He's been gracious to be with us the other 6 episodes. I don't know, do you enjoy this or what? Or you just have nothing better to do?
Must not be anyone else that wants to do this with you, so here I am.
Yeah, my own son won't even do it with me, so what's that tell you? That's exactly right. But this week's episode, we're going to talk about sonars, forward-facing sonars versus the down imaging or the typical ice fishing sonars that a lot of people have used in the past. So we're going to talk about some of the uses in the remaining open water season, but then also focus our attention on the Institute that's coming up here pretty quick, but also the ice fishing uses as well, because there's multiple uses for each one of the units. So let's talk about the forward-facing sonars in the summertime. There's a number of different types out there, different companies, but let's talk about how you use your forward-facing sonar without saying really which one you have.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with all the new technology, it can definitely be a little overwhelming at times, I would say. A lot of people that are, used to their traditional, sonar that they've used for however long, and, you throw this big new piece of technology and everyone hears that, you see a fish and you cast at it and it bites, and it's not that easy. It can definitely, you learn a lot that you maybe wouldn't have seen otherwise, that, you learn a lot about maybe fish behavior, how fish will set up on certain locations, and all that sort of stuff. But I would say mainly, when you're using a forward-facing sonar, it's going to be, I would say the best way to use it is probably when you're in a casting scenario. Not to say you can't use it if you're trolling or pulling bottom mounts or something like that, but your best, optimized scenario is when you're in a casting scenario, whether that be deep, shallow, river, lakes, whatever it may be. And, get on the front of your trolling motor and, cover a lot of water, whether you have, your forward-facing sonar on a pole or on the trolling motor, whatever it may be, but pan around all the different depths, and you can really, with any sort of forward-facing sonar, you can look in all these different depths without maybe putting your boat in that specific depth. So you can cover a lot of water without necessarily your boat being in that water.
Well, I think you hit a key point, is that you learn a lot more about how the fish are reacting to your bait, where the fish are hanging out according to the structure and stuff like that. And I equate it back to, I'm a lot older than you are, so I can remember some of these original down imaging sonars coming out, and a lot of people crying about, foul, that you're going to catch way too many fish, it's unfair to the fish. And that's the same argument that's being said about the forward-facing sonars. But when they first came out, the down imaging, we did learn a lot about fish behavior, and that's what you're seeing here. Whether or not you're dealing with a Garmin, whether or not you're dealing with a Lowrance, or whether or not you're dealing with a hummingbird unit, these forward-facing sonars, if used properly, will actually tell you a lot more than just where the fish are located.
No doubt. I mean, everyone, I don't know, it can get a little bit, I would say, complex at time, but if everyone kind of says traditionally before forward-facing sonar, let the fish tell you what you should be using or how you should, use your cadence. Well, with forward-facing sonar, you can kind of, see in live time, well, this fish maybe went up to it, but, didn't seem quite as aggressive. Okay, maybe I need to slow my cadence down a little bit. Or this fish, liked it when it chased down to the bottom. Maybe they're feeding on some sort of invertebrates on the bottom. Or you can learn, numerous things throughout the day that you would have maybe not known before. It can just, make it an overall better day on the water.
And a lot of states now are really talking about whether or not these forward-facing sonars should be continued to be used. Some tournaments have outlawed them because they feel that's a little bit unfair. But honestly, I think the horse has left the barn already on a lot of this technology, and it's only going to get better and better. Over the past couple of years, we've seen improvements on the transducers and everything else, and being more, refined than what they have been when they first came out. So we'll see what happens. The good thing is that if you plan on coming to this ICE Institute, November 7th through the 9th at the Sioux Falls Arena Convention Center, you're going to see all of these on display. They're going to be, at a fantastic price, so you're going to want to take advantage of that. But the other things that are going to be available at the Ice Institute is those typical ice fishing sonars that we refer to as, what a lot of times people will refer to it as a Vexilar, whether or not it's a Vexilar or not. But you have companies like Vexilar, Hummingbird, as well as Markham that have their own units. And so tell me how you would use, let's say, the forward-facing sonar in the ice season.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of people, since forward-facing sonars came out, people typically think, and just, for good reason, you spend this amount of money, you can use it for everything. And for some, scenarios, that's, you can definitely do that. But there's still a time and a place that you want to be able to use your traditional flasher. One example that I've sseen a lot of times is, if you're chasing panfish, for example, they can be very, very finicky, whether that mean, because you're walking towards them or they feel that pinging of any sort of forward-facing sonar. It sounds crazy. I didn't believe it until I've seen it. You might have fish, people call it, the fish will kind of wall up when they maybe get to 10 feet or slightly farther, and they just kind of sit there. Well, a lot of times, especially if there's a lot of shacks around, a lot of people have, tried to fish these perch or crappies or bluegills, whatever they may be. A flasher is going to be your best bet. So you maybe locate them with the forward-facing sonar, get within, say 50, 60 feet, go try to drill near them, and then use that flasher to maybe, dial them in and go ahead and, catch as many as you can.
And with each of these forward-facing sonars, you can adjust the transducer to mainly looking down instead of, so you're not pinging those fish, and those fish will start to come in. Because like you, we have seen them before that they will all of a sudden just kind of stand off at a distance, and you turn off that forward-facing sonar and they come into you. So when you utilize, let's say yesterday's technology with today's technology, I think you've got a good mix. And that's where, again, a lot of times when these forward-facing sonars came out, a lot of people were more than willing to sell their Vexilars and their marking units because they're like, well, they don't need them anymore. Now we're starting to realize you need to have both. It sounds kind of ridiculous to think that way, but if you really want to be the most successful on the ice, you'll use a forward-facing sonar to locate them and then use your down imaging sonar to fish with, and you'll find out that you'll have a little bit more success. So, if you got that Vexilar, don't throw it away. Don't sell it. You don't use your money to buy a forward-facing sonar if you haven't done that already. And again, do that at the Institute because the forward-facing sonars and the down imaging sonars are going to be available, and again, at typical Institute prices, so be aware of that. So, I mean, right now, how do you see the market changing at all? Do you see the forward-facing sonars taking even more of a let's say, of a role in the sonar market, or do you see that kind of stagnating and other things coming out? What do you foresee?
I feel like it's, you had your initial, insane spike of, I would say, more and more people buying them, and as, more and more people have them, more and more people get to kind of learn them to their, fullest capabilities. But I would say there's still definitely some room to grow. I mean, technology never gets worse. It's always going to get, better, and people are going to figure out how to use it better. But with that being said, there's certain lakes and certain areas that are getting hit harder than they've maybe been in the past, or people are kind of maybe being able to fish them more effectively, whether they're keeping them or releasing them. And so there's still definitely a use for some of your other technologies that maybe have been looked over. The other thing I should mention is some of your more traditional technologies are just like your Vexilar, just say for example, or a Helix unit or whatever it may be, are just so much lighter than any of your forward-facing sonar units. So if you're around a school of crappies or perch or whatever it may be, sometimes it's nice if you already have a bunch of holes drilled just to run over there real quick, then lug in your forward-facing sonar unit, or even if you have a sled to drag around. But
yeah, and speaking of sleds, Otter came out with their sonar sled. I think that's going to be one of the hottest items this ice season, and we'll see that at the Institute again. But it just shows you how heavy those forward-facing units can be when you're trying to haul that out on the ice by hand all the time. It does become more of a piece of luggage versus something that's portable, so be aware of that. And that's where that Vexilar, and if you use that, team that up with a camera, now all of a sudden you know exactly how the fish are reacting and what kind of fish you're actually dealing with. And that was always been, the unknown. Is that a carp? Is that a walleye on the bottom? What is it? Well, drop the camera down there and that will definitely help. So all this technology is meant to really help you out on the ice or the body of water that you are out in during the summertime to make your trip more successful. And if you don't know how to use it, that's where the advantage comes in with the Ice Institute, that you can work along, or you can stand alongside the guys and have them show you how to really utilize it, how to manipulate the settings to give you the best view of what you may be looking at. Also to talk to all of us on how we use them. I think for myself, my lack of hair, gray hair or whatever, I think you can probably talk to the younger guys. They use it a lot more, but even myself, it just shows you that an old guy can learn new tricks. I do use it, and honestly, I'm just impressed with it. And I think the technology, as you said, is only going to get better. So be aware of that. Take advantage of the Ice Institute, and that's coming up November 7th through the 9th at the Sioux Falls Arena Convention Center. And if you have any questions whatsoever, don't hesitate to give us a call at 605-336-9132, or stop by here at the store. But for sure, we'll see you at the Institute, and also we'll see you right here next time at Inside the Tackle Box.